Genesis 31, verse 1. And he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all his glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field of his flock, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before, but the God of my father hath been with me. And ye know that with all my power I have served your father. And your father hath deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times, but God suffered him not to hurt me. Now, I don't know if he's exaggerating or not, but we didn't read that Laban changed his wages 10 times. Certainly he did a couple times, but maybe something else went on there. Verse 8, And if he said thus, The speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, The ringstraked shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ringstraked. And thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father, and given them to me. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes, and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ringstraked, speckled, and grizzled. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see, all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ringstraked, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointed the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. Now, I think that's very interesting. We're reading here that he had a dream. Mm-hmm. The dream told him to offer this thing to Laban about the animals and what colors they were. And it's like, how did he know that? How did all that work? And I don't remember this part when we were reading it before. In order to say, well, why is he doing this? Well, he's had a dream. So we're reading about it after the fact. And I'll say the Bible's like that many times. You read something in the Old Testament and you go, what's going on? And then you go over to the New Testament and it tells you. And like, well, how did they know that? Well, God's the writer of all of it, right? And so he might tell someone later to write something down that wasn't written down before.
That was referring to the situation.
Well, there's all kinds of things in the Bible that refer to other things, and there's more detail in them. So God, that just shows you that God's the author of all of it.
In other books of the Bible, yeah. And it clarifies the explanation of other things, right?
Yeah, and you have to say, well, how did the person writing later know what happened? Well, the same way that Moses knew what happened in Genesis, God told him. Mm-hmm. All right, verse 14. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. For all our riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. So they're basically in agreement with him. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting, which he had gotten in Paddan Aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. So when it says stolen the images, what are they talking about?
Idols.
Yes. So got to remember, all the people of the world are idolaters. Mm-hmm. They worship other gods. Why? Well, because at Babel, God scattered the people, confused their languages, and assigned devils over them. Mm-hmm. So they're doing what's expected. And this is all she really knows, even though she knows that Jacob believes in a God where you don't have idols. She's still got that ingrained in her. It's like a Catholic that becomes saved, can't get rid of that old mentality. It takes time. Mm-hmm. All right, verse 20. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. So he leaves without saying anything. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and set his face toward the Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. Now, I'm not going to dive into this, but many times in Scripture you have the third day. And the third day is a picture of resurrection. I'd say that's not quite what happened here, but verse 23. And he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night, and said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. Now, the thing I'll highlight here is there's many times when God's speaking to someone that you might say is not a believer. Pharaoh had a dream. Abimelech has a dream. Here, Laban has a dream. God talks to some other people sometimes. And it usually has something to do with his chosen, his elect, somebody that he's dealing closely with. God doesn't have a dream for someone today about what Enrique's doing. Leave Enrique alone. No, God's not doing that. It doesn't mean that God doesn't love you or me or anyone else, but he's not doing that today. He's not speaking to anyone other than through the written word. All right. Let me find where we were here. Verse 25. Then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said unto Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives taken with the sword? Now, here's my first question. Aren't they his wives? Okay. So I didn't take you. I bought them from you. I worked for 7 years to marry them.
Mm-hmm.
So
you marry 7, and then you have to work another 7 years.
Yeah. So I'd say, well, I didn't take anything. Now, did I leave? Yes, but
you got deceived by him.
Well, they were both deceiving each other. So Jacob's getting what he sowed, reaping what he sowed. All right, verse 27. Wherefore didst thou flee away secretly and steal away from me, and didst not tell me that I might have sent thee away with mirth and with songs, with tabret and with harp? And I'll say, liar. But anyway, and hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters, thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, Take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. Sounds like you're on the border of it right there. And now, though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? Jacob doesn't know anything about that. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for so I said, Peradventure thou wouldest take by force thy daughters from me. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. Before our brethren discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. Don't make a dumb vow like the guy in Judges. We haven't read that. He vows, I'll slaughter whatever comes through my gates, and it's his daughter that comes through. Mm-hmm. And then here, kill whoever took it. You might want to find out who took it first before you run your mouth. All right, verse 33. And Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the two maidservants' tents, but he found them not. Then went he out of Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture and sat upon them. And Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. And she said to her father, Let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. So I guess she's claiming she's having her period. And he searched, but found not the images. And Jacob was wroth, and chode with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin, that thou hast so hotly pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found of all thy household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us both. This 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. That which was torn of beasts I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it. Of my hand didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was, in the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from mine eyes. Verse 41, Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I have served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely thou hast sent me away now empty. God hath seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked them yesternight. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne? Now, I don't know why Jacob doesn't say this. When I came here to get a wife and to go back. What part of that don't you understand? But anyway, I guess a lot of time's passed by and they've forgotten that. Verse 44, Now therefore come thou, and let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones, and they took stones, and made an heap. And they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it, Jegar Sahadutha. But Jacob called it Gilead. Well, that's good. It's shorter. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Gilead. And Mizpah, for he said, The Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take otherwise besides my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee. And Laban said to Jacob, Behold this heap, and behold this pillar, which I have cast betwixt me and thee. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father, judge betwixt us. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount, and called his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat bread, and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning Laban rose up, and kissed his sons and his daughters, and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place. Now, one thing that enters my mind is the God of Abraham, also the God of Nahor. And I'll say, well, I don't know where that comes from, but it may be that before Abraham got to Canaan, that maybe, he shared who he believed in. Yeah, I don't know, maybe Nahor and Laban and all them, they know who he is, but God's not really talking to them. I don't know. I'd say if your God is the God of Abraham, what are you doing with images? So I don't know what to make of that. So, all right, that's all of chapter 31.